Good evening and welcome back to Sports Talk ATL. I am Chase Earl, joined by Alex Lord. The Atlanta Braves offense showed up yesterday to a degree, or at least to a degree of a much better than what we've seen over most of the season. I think that's five or more runs and something like 6 out of the last 7 games. So looks like they're coming back to life. Austin Riley, huge game, 3 hits. His OPS over the last 25 games, guys, is approaching 1,200. I mean, to say he's back is an understatement. Like, this guy, I don't know what it is about the summer months. It always seems to take him a month to get going. And then, of course, you have the injury added on there. So it took a little bit longer this year, but he's approaching an 800 OPS. He's approaching 3 WAR by the time the All-Star break rolls around. And he's looking like the best third baseman in baseball, like a lot of people thought he was coming into the season. Charlie Morton gives up 4 runs, goes 6 1/3. They tried to make him go 7. Maybe you held him in there a little too long. I don't know. But Charlie Morton, it just seems like at this stage of his career, is really, really good for most of every single game that he pitches, but he cannot seem to avoid those hanging curveballs that get hit into the stratosphere as long as humanly possible. And he did that 3 times, I think, last night. And it wasn't the worst outing. It's not the worst outing. It's just like, it's amazing to me, a pitch that's been so successful. One of the best pitches in all of baseball is his curveball. Comes back to bite him in the worst possible way so often.
Yeah, I mean, I think he did enough for the Braves to win that game. I mean, he did win. He did do enough, and with Marcell Ozuna's home run to tie, they did enough, and it was the Braves bullpen, which it uncharacteristically let the team down. It's been locked down for most of the season, especially recently. I know you just did something on how they're better at run prevention than just about any group in baseball. Charlie Morton did enough to win that game. But when you kind of, look at the context of the situation, 1,200 feet of home runs is insane. But I think, if it's possible that he still pitched pretty well outside of 1,200 feet of home runs.
It's 3 mistakes, man.
Yeah.
And unfortunately, when it seems like more than most pitchers, and listen, if you make a mistake in the big leagues, especially a bad mistake like a hanging curveball, it's usually going to get punished. But sometimes you'll see pitchers be like, oh, he got away with that one. And it just seems like every time Charlie Morton throws one over the middle of the plate, you're not getting away with it. And that's just kind of, I think we've seen enough over the last years, and really the last several years, because this is who he's been. This is who he's been for the last several years. It seems like we know what's coming. Like, can you avoid?
You can
the
count
tonight?
on one bomb at least one bomb a game. What feels
sometimes
like
3.
Yeah, sometimes 3. But I think I'm not. It was a fun game to watch, to be quite honest. Back and forth. I'm glad I stayed up for it. Tired of the 9:40 games. Would really like if the West Coast would consider my bedtime when we talk about this. But the Braves bats are alive. I think Austin Riley hotter than Hades. What is it? What is the fact that he's like sleepwalks through the first couple months of the season and then decides to play like an MVP from June on to the second half of the season? And it's not just it's a June-July thing. It is literally a June-July second half of the season type of thing. Like if you're the Atlanta Braves, you might want to recognize that and like maybe play him a month before the season on a regular basis or something. But he's hotter than Hades. Yeah. He's got like what, he's slugging 700 right now, something like that. Everybody is starting to hit. Ozzy's doing his thing. Travis d'Arnaud had a few hits last night. Orlando Arcia is still a trash can. Jared Kelenic is still doing his thing. I think the last piece about it, and you said it, is Matt Olson to start putting some balls in the stands. That'll be the final piece of the kind of puzzle to get this Braves offense to a point where we're really confident heading into the postseason, because unlike last night, we were very confident in this Braves pitching staff. It doesn't really matter. Charlie Morton might be the 5th guy by the time October rolls around. I know we've kind of touched on it a little bit, and maybe we'll talk about it more and more the better he looks. Spencer Schwellenbach could push Charlie Morton down in this rotation. Now, the Braves do things their own way. They might trust Charlie Morton, a 40-year-old vet, in the postseason a little bit more, but Spencer Schwellenbach is certainly making a case to at least have a discussion about moving him up in the rotation.
Yeah, I mean, I guess
a little early to say, but
I mean, it's 7 starts in. I think you also have to think about Spencer Schwellenbach and the innings thing. I don't know how they're going to utilize him. And then also, are they going to thrust him in there to start a postseason game, which could be, game 4. You're looking at game 4 of a potential NLDS series. This is the hypothetical we're talking about. That could be an elimination game. So it could be almost a must-win game for the Braves. Are you going to go to the rookie? Listen, he's definitely got the stuff. He's definitely got the poise. Like there's a lot of rookies out there you wouldn't trust. He's a guy that, at least from the mental aspect, I think I would trust. But then you also have a guy in Charlie Morton who has been pretty good for the Braves. I mean, last night wasn't great. He's had some wasn't great starts. He's also had some unbelievable starts where he kind of turns back the clock. And then you think about his success in the postseason and that kind of poise that he has on the mound. I have a hard time thinking they're going to turn away from a guy like Morton because of his postseason experience. But listen, I mean, Spencer Swellenbach's got every opportunity, and a lot of guys have opportunities. I mean, we're not even talking
change.
We're not
Ian Anderson.
Well, we're also not talking about, I mean, trade deadline acquisitions. If they bring in a guy that's a proven starter, he could get that spot. So yeah, there's a lot of options right now, a lot of things that are yet determined about that 4th spot. But as long as the offense, and I agree, Matt Olson, that's the last piece to me right now, because Murphy's hitting, Duvall's hitting, Riley's hitting. Arcia is never going to hit, so we don't even have to talk about him. And maybe they find a replacement for him. But yeah, once you bring in some additions to the outfield, improve upon this depth, hopefully replace Orlando Arcia, even though I'm not as confident as a lot of people might be, or just expecting that to happen, because I don't think the options are going to be plentiful.
No.
I mean, Bo Bichette, the guy doesn't play defense. And then when you look at Ozzie Albies, that guy doesn't play defense. Imagine that's great pitching staff.
Who said Bo Bichette to a natural position in Atlanta at second base and moving Ozzie Albies over to
Jim Bout.
He's a wise guy.
Maybe.
He knows a lot about baseball. But I'm confused what he has watched, and it's not just this season. Ozzie Albies has been an underwhelming defender for going on like 2 or 3 years now. That guy doesn't have the arm strength to play second base, let alone shortstop. I have no idea. And that's what makes the shortstop conundrum so difficult to kind of figure out, because there isn't a ton of options. And those options are either, going to cost an arm and a leg. The future, is Nacho Alvarez going to fit into this future? To me, I get the whole 21-year-old, whatever, 17, 20 games at the AAA level, but this is a Braves staff that has not had any trouble pulling up their prospects, skipping the AAA level entirely. This just feels like, one, they truly don't trust Nacho Alvarez, or they want to see more. I don't know. Maybe he's trade bait for something. I don't know. Maybe they're putting their faith into Orlando Arcia for whatever reason. It just feels weird. This whole thing feels weird, because when have we ever been like, he's ready, or at least being like, all right, let's see it. Because we're past the point now. We're past
literally the exact same position.
Okay,
so I mean, I think
but he's a way better defender than Vaughn Grissom.
He is, but there are questions about him defensively. He's 21 years old. They're like 2 years ago, we were talking about Nacho Alvarez. People thought he was going to be a third baseman. He showed a lot of chops defensively. He's shown a lot of chops defensively now that people think he can be a shortstop. But it's a very similar situation, and I think that's what I want people to realize. It's very, very similar. So when you talk about Nacho Alvarez's trade bait, that could very well be the case, because this might be the highest his trade value is. I mean, think about Vaughn Grissom before he arrived at the major league level. He was a top 100 prospect. That's kind of where Nacho Alvarez is right now. They brought him up too early. He lost some of that value. Obviously, it worked out because we got Chris Sale out of it, but that's not always going to be the case. So this could be a case where they look at Nacho Alvarez and like, this is going to be the highest his trade value is. What can we get for Nacho Alvarez out there? And right now, I think you could get a hell of a lot, because he looks like a stud that could potentially play shortstop. And as we've seen, there's not a lot of shortstops out there that hit the ball well, and he's hitting the ball very well for Gwinnett. So I think it's a very similar situation to Vaughn Grissom, and as far as questions about defense, age, and handing the keys to a guy like that.
All right, let me just paint what do you have to lose other than future value in a prospect, which is important, over potentially figuring out the position, not only for the long term, but this season where you were trying to win a World Series, and we are currently watching the worst player in baseball every single night in Orlando.
Well,
every single night, this guy is a tomato can, trash can, whatever you want to say. I'm not trying to get personal. This guy can't hit a ball to save his life. At what point are you like, all right, this guy is who he is. Seitzer can't get any more out of him.
Well, here's the thing. That's going to happen. Like, and it's going to happen. But I don't think we talked about it happening before the trade deadline. Maybe they don't want to because they don't want him to come up there and struggle and then he loses trade value. They want to evaluate the entire situation, see if Orlando Arcia can get hot. But if they do not make a significant addition, and I'm talking about a starting caliber shortstop at the trade deadline, they're going to have to evaluate this. It doesn't matter because if he's playing this poorly, you're right. They're not going to have a choice and they're going to have to bring him up. And that's going to be something that I think they will do as long as Nacho Alvarez, these trends keep continuing. Arcia sucks. Alvarez is playing well in Gwinnett. But until then, right now, if it hasn't happened yet, I can't imagine.
Yeah, why? Yeah, that is the thing is making me think that they're obviously doing a couple of things, and whether it's, protecting his trade value, like you mentioned. I didn't really think about the Vaughn Grissom saga. That does make a little bit of sense. Maybe they're putting stupid faith, blind faith in Orlando Arcia potentially turning it around. And by turning it around, I mean becoming a slightly below average offensive guy. That's not putting your faith into becoming the all-star he was. You're basically just banking on him turning into a below average offensive player again, which is seems pretty asinine. Yeah. Like, I don't understand. This is a World Series team.
Yeah, but the thing is, you just don't have a lot of choices. I think that's really what it comes down to. Your choices are few and far between. Nacho Alvarez will get a shot if Orlando Arcia keeps playing like this. I don't think there's any question about it. But they're going to try to wait this out as long as possible, at least through the trade deadline. At least that's the way it seems, because he'd be up right now if that wasn't the case.